be recorded. Pretty much, you'll have to leave, but we will keep the working group discussions because we want those to be non-judgmental spaces. Those will be kept for internal use, but we will share potentially the talks and the Q&As with those. On that note, Melissa has started the recording. Thank you, guys. There's also, Eva, did you get the AI note taker working in the end? So we have an AI note taker in the background, also just to support us in this process, because we have a lot of people here and a lot of breakout groups. So thank you very much. So our objectives for today are to collect the challenges in defining and implementing the KVIs. Some of you have already sent us some of those in advance, and I thank you very much. Your challenges and your best practices, and those have been very great. We've been very grateful for those. But we really want to better understand your current approaches to identifying relevant KVIs and their objectives. We also wanted to share what works well in projects working with KVIs and clarify the expected impacts of KVI use. So we have a series of engagements and discussions, guided discussions, to support in understanding these. What we aim to do is create a summary report. If we get enough insights, we'd love to actually share this as a webinar as well, a follow-up webinar. And we're going to do this by having some short presentations from projects, as well as the KVI methodology from the SNVC paper, as well as interactive breakout sessions. So we're going to break you into 5 groups, and we're going to guide you through discussions using an online whiteboard. So the schedule generally is for the first 45 minutes or so, or 35 minutes or so, we're going to have some presentations. Then we're going to give you a quick overview of the activities. And then we're going to start for the next hour and do our breakout activities, come back, share those together. So share the results of what happened in each of the sessions and then wrap up. It's going to be a very quick 2.5 hours. I know it sounds like long, but it's going to go fast. So again, we're going to record. We are recording. And just a quick overview, we'll have these 2 breakout sessions. I'll come back to the slide again really quickly. But the first one's going to be about mapping hopes, fears, questions, and assumptions around KVIs so we can really understand the landscape and the priority issues that are driving your projects right now. And then the second session is going to be understanding how we actually are working pathway from impact to indicator, how we're engaging with this, what our current approaches are, and what we understand those impacts to be. So really quickly, what I want to do is actually give you guys, we're going to be doing this in Miro. It's an online whiteboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in the chat. Melissa, can I ask you, because I can't access the chat readily right now while I'm sharing my screen, can I ask you to put the Miro link into the chat? And what I want you all to do is go into the Miro board. I'm actually going to share a different window really quickly so I can show you what you're going to see. So this is the Miro board. When you log in, you're going to get a view about like this. Actually, you don't have to log in. When you click the link, you'll get a view about like this. What I want you to do is I want you to scroll to the left, and I want you to find this giant test board. And I just want you to test yourself. Can you grab a sticky note and just type in it? You can type gibberish. That's all I want you guys to do. Just make sure you can do it. And I will stick the test board back to where it's supposed to be because it wandered for no good reason. So just go ahead, do that for a second. You can keep doing that in the background. I'm going to go back to the presentation. If Teams lets me find my screen sharing again. Thank you, guys. I see all of you floating around, so that's fabulous. And then back to the presentation, back to sharing the screen. Good. All right. So that's it. So now you got Miro. Everybody's in. If you have any problems, this should work it out. You should be able to just get in. But for now, we'll go back to the presentations really quickly. Great. So I'm going to now switch hats really quickly, and I'm going to talk a little bit about FIDAL and the motivations for this workshop from the perspective of FIDAL. Just 5 minutes very quickly. So FIDAL is one of the current Stream D projects from phase 1. We're halfway through, we have 18 partners, the coordinator's Nova. So it's one of the stream Ds. So it's one of the IAs that has the use cases, the large scale field trials. We have 7 use cases in media and PPDR, so public protection and disaster response. The main objective for this is a beyond 5G experiments, field trials, and environment for rapid prototyping and large-scale validation of advanced forward-looking applications. So it's working with relatively mature technologies. And the project also has 2 rounds of open calls. So where we have the sub-projects within our project that are being supported. And the way that we've been engaging KVIs in the project is to actually think of KVIs as the dotted line in this image. So for us, there's performance, that's the KPI, and where KVIs actually are intended to help us see, can we reach the intended value? So they help us, so the improved speed of data, that's one of the elements that we're trying to do with Beyond 5G. How do we work there? What else do we need to have in place so that we can assure that that actually does things like improve firefighting, save lives, saves environment, things like this. So this means understanding how can we actually build an exploration of the outcomes, not just the outputs, that bring in stakeholders into the view of the project itself. And this has been a really big challenge. And one of the reasons is because as we've been working, we've been finding ourselves in extraordinarily divergent places. So when we were working just within the PPDR, the disaster response vertical, trying to identify, how can we build down from trustworthy as a value? Let's take on reliability as a specific facet of trustworthy. What could be a good KVI for this? Even within those use cases in the same vertical, we found ourselves going in very different directions. So for example, we had 2 different ones. One that's more of a police response in an urban environment to an active shooter. Another one that's a wildfire response in a rural area, trying to just get ahead of the burn. So in one case, we had to ask ourselves what's at stake for who and what context to try to understand how the value matters and that impact matters to understand what the objective is. And we've said, so one is to the second, tactical situational awareness, life or death. What you do is there's a lot of public trust here, and it's a very specific, dense context. The other one, it's more situational awareness, trying to get all the diverse data sources to understand what's going on, but it's for decision making, to plan, aid in evacuation. It's a different type of time scale. So both need reliability, both need different types of data integrity, but the end result meant that our objectives were quite different. One needed absolutely no delay in service because there was not any second would matter. The other, actually, the seconds didn't matter and they expected delays. What mattered for them is the integrity of the information more. So that potential indicators in the end started to look quite different. And it meant we were really struggling to find these then. When do we have different indicators? When should we have indicators that are the same across everything? And this led to some bigger questions then, like this. When can you have the same, produce the same thing, check the same element, or when do you actually need different? This is a really diagram I use a lot when I try to explain equity and equality. So the first one's equality, everybody gets the same thing, but the end result could be a different experience or a different value is given to the people. The other case, everybody gets something different, but the end with the same value. So when do you need to do which things and how can the KVI support in this? And this became some big questions within the project. And that led us to a whole nother series of questions that are here on the slide. I won't spend too much time on them, but it really came to questions like how far out in scope and scale should a KVI look? How do we validate an indicator and measure to the value outcome? So how do you know you have the potential to make that impact you intend? How do we get access to the right kinds of data to do this work? And what kind of links can we draw? How do we draw this evidence link between KVI and KPI that we're trying to do along the process? And really, are KVIs another form of KPIs? Are they something different? And this has become a debate that we're having within our own project, and I've been hearing this across the ecosystem a bit. And then trying to understand, for example, when does a KVI need multidisciplinary work or interdisciplinary work? And how do we need to define the impacts in the projects that in ways that can help support defining the KVIs? And so all of these questions led to wanting to actually hold the conversation across this group and then help us figure out how to answer these questions together so that we can then move forward. So that's the motivation from the FIDAL side. I'm going to pass the floor now to my colleague Margot, and she will present from the 6G for Society perspective. So I will stop sharing my screen and Margot will take over.
Margot, you're muted.
Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
I don't, because the
Now
presentation...
disappeared.
Yeah. Okay, PowerPoint closed. Okay, don't worry. Let's open it again. Okay. I share it. Close. Okay, can you see it, right?
Yeah, we can, Margot. Thank you.
Okay, so 6G for Society toward a sustainable and accepted 6G for Society is a coordination and support action which started in January this year and will run for 2 years till December 2025 with 6 partners from 6 different countries. You see them in the slide. Is an SNS JU project, and its main aim is really supporting the project working on 6G development in the integration of the dimension of sustainability, not only economic sustainability, but also the environmental and societal aspects, bringing a holistic sustainability perspective. Well, okay. It runs over different flows of activities. The first one is really generating knowledge regarding aspects of the impact of 6G on society, on the values, and on the development of a methodology related to key value indicators and also key sustainable indicators. But other aspects important in this project is really exploring the society, the point of view and the perspective of society on 6G, and reaching out to the public, creating a more aware understanding and awareness about 6G. And in the end, providing points of reflection and policy recommendation. How do we do that? So the 3 main aspects related to the relationship between 6G and society that we are exploring are the impact, the aspect of values, and the aspect of acceptance of technology. Regarding impact, we are trying to understand which will be the broader and long-term impact of the revolution of hyperconnectivity and immersive communication on society, but more on the cultural and human perspective. So we are exploring all what goes beyond the more direct and intended impact of 6G applications. Just giving an overview, of course. Regarding the values, we are exploring the relationships and interlinkages between the technological development and the value drivers of society. So how the process of development technology is in a way influenced by value drivers, and how it gets to influence societal values in turn, and which are the way we can intervene in order to integrate this value into the process. And then there is a more practical mapping activities regarding the application of key values indicator, and this workshop is a an example of these activities. We are trying to understand the variations and the approaches in how projects are dealing with these challenges of key values indicators. But actually, another important dimension is the acceptance, is exploring the modalities, the variables that influence societal acceptance of technology, and the linkages between values integration, especially the integration of environmental values and societal values, and the creation and the emergence, not creation, the emergence of societal acceptance. And with this, we also aim to, enter into a dynamics with project and support their work toward an holistic approach to sustainability. KVIs are meant as a means toward sustainability. We know that our work first looked at values and trying to understand what they mean. A lot of work has already been done across the project, and we acknowledge that there are different interpretations of values as a principle, as a benefits, and a goal experienced by society, and as a value for money dimension. So really value as different nuances, depending that we speak about societal values or creation of value, which could be economic or societal. So there are different focuses, and this impact on then how we integrate this value or values in technological development. And so in order to do this process, it's really important to understand who is involved in the conception of the technology, and which are the priorities that we want to integrate into it, how we interact with the possible target audiences, the extent to which they are taken into account, what is prioritized in the design as an objective, as a benefit to achieve, which are the promises that we do about 6G, and how we want to prioritize and achievement. Of course, one of the main issues and difficulties and challenges is to navigate through what we call what they are recognized as trade-off between value or value systems, because sometimes we have the impression that there might be conflicts between value sustainability against economic value. So this all depends on what we prioritize and the goal and the image of the future that we want to build. Of course, all this work at the design level shall be then mirrored or interlinked with the societal part. The audience, the users, we are navigated into a context which faced some challenges regarding societal acceptance in the past. So this simply has to be understood, the dynamic, the why, the how this limited acceptance manifested, emerged, have to be understood, and we are trying to do that, understanding which are the issue, and to address that with public awareness. Okay. Then there is a final concept that we would like to highlight, that KVIs alone are not the only or the magic, that the only means to achieve sustainability, because it is to be realized that they are an ingredient among others. There is a an important role played by the general long-term vision that we want that drives our the technology development processes, the choice of use cases. So basically, we could be very good in integrating values within the process of technological development and applications, but then perhaps when it comes to a wider application of the choice of specific use cases and goals, or business strategies or policy strategies, we might apply this technology in a way that would reinforce perhaps older paradigms or that are not completely in line with sustainability. So it really depends on the interplay between values and priority goals that we want to achieve in society. For example, agriculture and farming precision applications would be very well developed and with key values integrated, but then it depends how they are used to achieve which final real goal. Is it to achieve well-being and sustainability, or perhaps to be more efficient on productivity? So just that there is a role, there is another level of values, which is the underpinning key value frame that drives our action. And that's it. Just to introduce a bit discourse and reflection on values and its interplay.
Thank you so much, Margot. Thank you very, very much for that. It's so fascinating, the work that's coming out of this project. All right, so now we have one more presentation we want to share, and this is with Maria. Are you able to share your screen? Are you ready to go?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
You hear me? Yes,
yeah.
Great. I will share the presentation. So it's the last presentation before we get to the actual workshopping part. So I try to keep it short, but I will.
Oh, also quickly in the chat, we see those questions. We'll do questions at the end of this presentation very, very quickly. So we'll just have a little bit of Q&A.
Okay, can you now see also the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I will briefly give an overview of this KVI methodology that many of you are now applying in the projects. And my name is Maria Blue. I come from the University of Oulu, where I work as a research director, and I'm also involved in HEXX JU project and 6G musical project within the SNS projects. And then I'm a co-chair of the SNVC group in 6G right now together with Stefan Wunder. And this is the paper that I'll be talking about, and you've probably seen this. And if not everybody has seen it, I'm giving you the link here so that when we talk about the SNVC's KVI work, there has been prior work in a form of a white paper that was published in 2022. I was not part of that work. It was done in this SNVC group, but then I joined only afterwards. So that white paper is publicly available. But the follow-up work of that one developed this KVI publication, which was published in the journal, Telecommunications Policy Journal, earlier this year. And Telecommunications Policy is a great journal for any kind of telecom-related policy research in a multidisciplinary manner. So as you can see, it's a collection of 13 people, 13 co-authors from 13 organizations. So what ended up as this current SNVC KVI methodology, it's a joint work between these 13 people who may or may not have been part of the previous white paper work. And they come from different organizations. And this paper is publicly available, open access. My own institute paid the open access fee in an agreement so that anybody can access this paper. So this is the SNVC KVI publication, the current version of it. hopefully there is further work. Here I've just copied the abstract of the paper to highlight the key terms, what this is all about. What are we talking about? The key thing is about towards aligning technology development with the values-based consideration and reprioritization of different ecological, social, and economic outcomes. So we are talking about technology development, which is driven by values. We are talking about especially ICT development, information and communication technology development, and more specifically 6G development. So values-based, values-driven ICT technology development. But there has not been such a clear conceptual framework before for values-driven ICT technology development. That's why this paper is then introducing certain concepts. It's using the concept of key value indicators, and that is used as a method to analyze values-related outcomes that stem from ICT development. So the paper is presenting a KVI framework for the context of ICT R&D, especially 6G. It has 5 steps. You've probably gone through the steps, and it tries to address social challenges in the technology design and estimate the value outcomes from technology use. So it's really bringing together values-based design and the ICT development, because there was no great references on that topic before. So not just us, but there is the need to identify and evaluate the impact of technology research on societal values. 6G is driven by societal considerations. Sustainability is one major thing, and the ITU level, the global framework recommendation published a year ago, it is giving design principles. One of them is sustainability, correcting the uncorrect, and so on. So there are these kind of societal values-based drivers for ICT technology research, for 6G research. But the open topic was to how to systematically integrate social challenges and values into this technology development, more specifically ICT development and 6G development. So that's that was the gap in the research literature in the domain. And then since this is published as a scientific journal paper, then also the format is a scientific journal paper. It's not like a manual, but it's a scientific publication. We had to alter the manuscript quite a bit in the review process, not the flow itself, but many things had to be updated based on to make it a scientific publication. So it's a conceptual framework for values-driven development. And it brings together different disciplines, social sciences, disciplines from social sciences, but also engineering from the ICT development. The people involved in that had versatile background, and organizations were also academia and industry. And the ICT can impact values in many ways. There's a direct impact or indirect impact. The direct impact is where the ICT's its own direct resources required are being assessed. And then the indirect impact is the positive or negative effects that come from the use of that ICT technology. And values, you saw the previous presentation, how values were understood there. I claim that values, it's a very, very difficult topic. It's a well-established concept in the separate disciplines. There are certain disciplines who have well-established concepts. Social and some innovation management sciences do that. Business part has different understanding of values. But I claim still that within the context of ICT development, 6G development, what is meant with value or values-related terms, it's still a challenge because they also have the personal aspect in them. Here in this paper, we refer to two notions of values as criteria and outcomes. And that drives how a society defines progress and public goods. There are normative frameworks like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, European Green Deal. They are kind of frameworks, normative frameworks that define values as criteria and goals. And then the other notion that we used in this paper was values as an outcome. And here, values as an outcome refers to the benefits that the technology offers. But even this is a challenging thing, what they mean. There can be a lot of different understandings of value. And then the big job for us is to try to present these concepts, try to reach certain kind of understanding of them. But there's no right or wrong. Like it's research, it's science. Even these concepts evolve. So this paper, the KVI methodology paper, defines key concepts. They are based on certain sources, but those things can be defined in a different way in different sources. Normative frameworks, they are very important drivers for the development, like sustainable reporting directives. They are normative framework. And then values as criteria. They are the motivating goals for technological development and criteria for evaluating intermediary results. Then values as outcomes are the benefits or the detriments. And there can be different types of values as outcomes: economic, social, ecological benefits, and detriments, for example. So there are a lot of linkages between the different concepts, and it's not straightforward what the different things are. Values, key values, they are agreements between stakeholders. There's no, it's not that there's a certain set of values which are universal. It's not, they are agreed. It's a selection of values that are agreed among those who are involved. And the KVIs in this paper are quantitative or qualitative indicators, because the I is the indicator, key value indicator, for causing effects as values on values as outcomes. So it's a very specific thing in this paper that they are defined this way. And this is different from the white paper, the SNVC original white paper 2 years ago. There it was more about measurable. But how do you really measure values with the measuring tape? I don't think so. So we need to keep it broad, quantitative or qualitative indicators. The I is the indicator. And then they can be assessed. They're not measured necessarily, but they are assessed in different ways, especially in a qualitative way. Scenarios, use cases, they are also specific to this paper. They can mean a different thing in another context, even though scenarios are defined in 100 different ways. Use cases can be defined in a very, very different way. But these are for the purposes of this KVI method paper. But I will not go into all the details, but I want to emphasize the this is linked to technology design, technical enablers. Technologies will then provide the capabilities that are needed to offer those or to create those values and benefits. This is an overview figure from the paper about the key concepts. When we were drawing this, it was very, very challenging. Like we were changing this even in the last moment before the submission. So there is no clear, this is how we saw it in that moment, how the different concepts are. There are certain kinds of flows, but even this is subject to debate. But in order to enable a certain use case and target the value and achieve the value impact, we need a certain set of technical enablers that need to be developed. And that's what the projects are doing, developing these technical enablers. So that's where a lot of effort is being based. But that technology development should be for some goal, to provide some value for society. And then the steps, there are 5 steps in the KVI framework: definition of the use cases and scenarios. What is it that we're talking about? What is the services that are being offered? What is the use case in question? And then the second step is the values. What are the key values with respect to this use case? What are the positive outcomes that it should target, and so on? And that has to be agreed between the stakeholders. Then it's about analysis of on the value in many ways. That's the step 3. And then step 4 is the technical part. What kind of technologies are needed? And step 5 is the assessment. But even this is the state of this current KVI framework. There's no clear right or wrong. This is that interpretation that the group did. And you can find the details in the paper. This figure is in the paper, starting from the scenario use case definition, then defining key values as a group effort between those stakeholders who are involved. What are the key values from multiple perspectives, environmental, social, economic perspectives, and so on. And then analyzing what kind of enabler KVIs there are, use case KVIs, and so on. What kind of technical realization is needed, what technology enablers are needed, and then assessment of the outcomes. But to conclude here, so as you saw, this is extremely multidisciplinary. It's even interdisciplinary. And those going beyond the borders of disciplines, it's very important when we're designing future ICT systems like 6G. And that requires bringing together experts with different backgrounds. It's not easy. I've done that for quite a long time now, and it is really, really challenging because the same terms mean totally different things depending on the discipline. Value is the prime example. So the concept of value alone has a totally different meaning and understanding depending on whom you talk to, depending on the background and the disciplinary background, working experience, personal experience, and all that. So that's why we need to have this dialogue, like what do we mean with these concepts? And the whole goal was values-driven ICT technology development. And that's what this paper, the KVI methodology paper, aimed at, providing the very first initial framework for values-driven ICT technology development as a collaboration between engineering and social sciences and academia and industry. And now it's in the application phase. It's been applied in many SNS projects, and also there's a need to further develop this methodology. This is just a starting point, and this is where I want to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Maria. That was very, very helpful. So what I want to do right now is, while I go back to sharing my screen really quickly, see if we've got just a couple minutes for questions. Are there any questions that are absolutely urgent right now? Because we'll get tons of time to talk together coming up in our interactive group. So I will happily take, is that Jane? Or Akshay?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. Hi. Yeah,
Hi.
no worries. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the presentations. This was very insightful. So very quickly asking, these are very important topics, and as technology enabler developer, how do I actually take these KVIs into account in the technology enabler development phase? Because some of the KVIs that we discussed could be qualitative, and they might not be easy to measure in the development phase, but they are measurable in the operational phase, and that might not happen till 2030. So how do I claim, or how do I say that it will contribute towards this KVI? Is there any thought behind this in any of the projects that all of you are involved in? Thanks a lot.
You are literally asking a question that is one of the motivations for this workshop, because this is an answer we're trying to derive right now, is what are people doing for this? So it's going to be unsatisfying not to completely answer it, because it's something we're all trying to actively figure out. And it's considered a challenge that many of the projects gave in advance. What does this mean when the data comes after your project's over, or you need this to be sort of operational deployment? What can you do, and what does a good then KVI look like that you can do within the project span? Can I ask you to hold on to that question and bring it to the first activity that we're going to do together in the discussion group, because it's a perfect question for that activity. And then we can go from there,
Sure.
if I may, because it's a very, very well phrased and a very, very good question that is one we're actively trying to seek an answer to right now.
Sure, thanks a lot.
No, thank you. Sorry, Chiara.
Thank you for your presentation and for this overview. I will have two questions which might result a bit challenging, but I want to challenge, because I think that's a workshop where we are reflecting on very important things. So what's the pitch to SNS projects to embed value into their research? How will you explain this will add value to their project from a technology researcher's perspective? So changing, putting yourself in the foot of the researcher's perspective. And maybe the second question would be, what's the plan for KVIs on the global stage, or do you think it should be a European specificity?
Oh, those are two very good, challenging questions, and a little past the scope of what we're going to discuss in this workshop, but I'm happy to take a stab at them. Margot and Maria, if you have thoughts for them as well, I would appreciate your thoughts, because this is one that I do not have the definitive answer to, but I have my opinion on these, for sure. So the first question, I basically take it down to motivation. It's sort of a motivational question, if I interpreted it correctly. And one of the things that this can do is, if you understand, there's a lot of work going on in 6G for Society on acceptance right now. And one of the things that is challenging people's acceptance or trust of these technologies isn't actually anything conspiratorial, anything like that. One of the things that's showing up is that sometimes they think that the decisions that are being made are more focused on driving technological performance and profit than they are around the benefits to the people's lives. And so this could help not just create something that is of value, but actually create something that is of accepted value to do this kind of a process and consider it. It also supports, and this is me speaking as a social scientist, really helping think about what kind of technology would actually be useful to people when you really think about when they engage with it. Do I need a new VR gadget, or can this help me, or can this VR gadget actually create a different type of hospital experience, for example, or a different type of way of engaging with family afar, or is this for gaming? You know, thinking about what this end goal is and therefore the features can really help. Another piece of thinking about values that helps you think about the who is this for, really, truly, and deeply and in detail. And having that conversation from the very, very start of conception, and maybe even having some of those who part of that conception process can greatly has the potential to actually change the direction of innovation trajectory. And so there's and help create products that are more marketable when it comes down to it in the end. Monique, did you want to add to that? Yeah.
Yes. So I have a cynical version of the answer, and then one that is more optimistic. So the cynical version is that many of the technologists do not care. They just care about delivering improved technologies that perform better and better. This is part of the process. And energy efficiency, which is good also for the environment and for the society, is perceived more as a technical objective, as a technical feature rather than a societal or environmental. So I think that the point here is that we have to reverse the process. So we have to go back to the way in which, for instance, software development works. You start with user requirements, and that's the problem. Very often we do not start from requirements. Here, user, its environment, its society, its economy. We have to reverse the way in which we design technologies, and we have to engage in the technology design people that are not necessarily technologists. So I think this is the only way to drive efforts in a different direction. And I'm saying that as a technologist, not that, I consider myself out of this category. Then the other more optimistic, well, it's optimistic as far as there is funding. We have to provide investments. We have to provide incentives. And investment should go only on technology that satisfy certain KVIs. So if by design the public and private procurement is calling for technologies that should satisfy certain requirements also in terms of society and environment and economy, then it would be a driving force. So it changes the way in which we drive technological developments. So I think we have to make sure that the culture driving the technological developments changes. And this can be done only by educating, but also by providing incentives, fiscal, economic, investments on research that goes in that direction. And this can only happen, again, with a multidisciplinary approach. Technologists alone cannot do that. And we see it in the SNS JU from our preliminary analysis and from what our partners just said. It's clear that we need to change a little bit the way in which we define and use these KVIs. So yeah, thank you.
Monique, that was a fabulous answer. Thank you very much. So I really appreciate it. Chiara, can I be utterly rude and leave your second question for the end? Because I think it's a really good question to come back to for the final discussion. Because I'd actually like to get to the workshop activities, and we're running a little bit behind. But I think it's a really good question to bring back at the end and have us answer. Is this a European thing or a global thing? Where does this stand? Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Thank you. And actually, I think you have your hand up again. I'm also going to be rude to keep us moving, but we're about to move into discussion groups. So we can keep talking about these things and keep moving on this. So we're not stopping the conversation. We're just shifting its format a little bit. So I really appreciate it. So I'm going to really quickly share my screen again. So we're about to move into the two activities. Very quickly, you guys will be swept off into Teams breakout groups. We have 5 different breakout groups, and we'll go back to the Miro board for some more structured discussion and conversation. While we do this, I just want you to know that we have some rules of play, just to remind you. And this is what makes for a really good discussion. So what I want everybody to do is suspend judgment so that we can all ask questions. In this case, there is no right and wrong answer. I think Maria said it really beautifully, that there's a lot of different perspectives and many are valid depending on where you're starting from. And so we need to understand what these perspectives are so that we can understand how to move forward. So we want to see, respectful and constructive interactions. I know I don't really have to remind you of that, but I am just going to do it anyways. What I want to do in these conversations is to focus on not just the quality, but also quantity. So please keep your thoughts coming. Welcome other points of views where we've got different groups in there. I want you to actively be asking each other questions in these groups. So don't just say your thoughts, but ask if you have questions. This is a time to do it and build on each other's thoughts. So basically think of this as a yes and, not a yes but interaction. So with that, I'm going to now hand this over to the magic of Melissa, and she's going to split us into our groups. You will be swept off with a warning. For those of you who did not register, you'll be left in the main plenary. We've tried to identify who you are and assign you, but I don't think we got everybody. And so from there, we will then shift you off. So you might have a quick discussion and then be shifted into a group.
Okay.
You guys got, oh my God, you got about as far as we did, Margot. That's awesome. Sorry, the rest of us are now in here with you. So we have 10 minutes left. I know everybody's getting hungry now because it is lunchtime and you guys have been absolutely amazing. I just have to say my group, I'm just kind of enamored with right now, if I'm allowed to say that. So I hope everybody else had a really great group. Our ideal had been to do rapporteurs, share and go, but I don't want to run us over. We will summarize this and make sure you guys get the findings from each of the groups so you guys can know what happens in each of the groups. So we're not going to leave this with us internally. We will share these discussions. What I'd like to do is, since we had 4 groups, wondering if I can ask the group leads really quickly, 1 minute, 1 key insights and 1 key challenge that you got from your group. So if you can have it. And Margot, since you're right there, we've unmuted already, are you willing to go with that?
Yeah, what really sticked to me, it's one thing is the challenge, the struggle really, which I perceived on, matching from the long-term and broader vision that KVIs helps us reach to, with the work of designers, especially in low TRL. So, okay, I'm driving there. I want that kind of society, but now I have to build up my technology. How can I do that, especially in low TRL where technology is predominant? So the importance of perhaps this is my interpretation. So there is also to reflect a bit on value-based design at very low TRL. And they suggested really to exemplify how KVIs can differently help in different TRL stages. So how the KVI change actually. The KVI work can change in different TRL. This is one thing. And the second big struggle is about the quantification and the measurability of KVIs, because this creates concrete issues in using them and may lead to the predominance of KPIs. This is what's left to me more, because the willingness is there, but in practice we still have to learn really how to, operationalize that well.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you, Margot. Yeah, no, perfect. That's great. Melissa.
I will let Maria come in for the hopes and fears and questions and assumptions.
Yeah, just super fast. You got 1 minute. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll be very fast, but very similar observation. So the hope really is that through these KVIs, we could change the way technology is being developed. So for technology developers to really consider the essential things that bring different types of value. That's the hope that we have, and then having a common set of values to consider. But then the fear is that if not all are involved in the process, if not all relevant researchers are involved, then how to engage people? And the big challenge is the numerical data. Like engineers want numbers, values are not numbers. So there is a fundamental mismatch between the expectations and then what the whole thing is about. And that's the big challenge and fear. Like, how do we get beyond this part? We still end up talking about numbers. What is the number? But that's not really helping anybody.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really, really great. So no, thank you. Did you have anything more you guys wanted to add from your group, or is that your two key things right there?
What the second part?
Perfect. All right. Then we had Flavia.
Yes, so I think a lot of the similar points already mentioned, the issue with the quantitative element of the KVIs. It was brought to light that duality between the technology goals and the sustainability goals. So kind of the KVIs versus the KPIs, and how to connect the dots with the technology providers, and how to make sure that the work that we do with KVIs is actually translated in that is not just goals. And also the importance of placing values at the beginning of the process when we work on technology development. So how KVIs can enable technology that is value-based and not vice versa. And so kind of inverting the trajectory that we seem to be in on right now. But otherwise, very similar points to what have been shared already.
Yeah, so for my group, it was really, really quite similar in that we also had there was a lot of questions that were about how to limit. So we have this great ambition of these very broad values, but how do you bring them down to something that's actually doable, and how do you draw the boundaries around that? And that actually came out both as a fear and a question within ours, but then also when we were actually working on the impact mapping, we were challenging even how we were defining the impact to then map from. Was it specific enough? Is it not? How do you get it? How do you get it so that you know that you're acting in the right way? And then another key issue for us, again, like the link between KVIs and KPIs was a question, but then also how do you make the value something that's really tangible for the developers? These are very tech-heavy projects. How do you define and engage these in a way so that these can be something that help drive and not just become sort of a marketing device as well? So that was something that we were also talked about quite a bit. And then the last thing we did when we were working on the impact mapping activity, one of the things that came out for us was the lack of the expertise amongst our group to be able to do the project we set out for ourselves. Like, we realized we were struggling, going, where can we get this data? Can we get it from here? Can we get it from there? Oh my God, we actually need different types of experts in the room. And it was really useful to actually get to this point and realize who we need to talk to. And I think that was actually a really helpful realization as well. So on that note, I will quickly point out one thing that I want to mention to you guys, which is, I'm trying to share my screen again. So 1 second, let me go back. I just had a quick little bit here. One last point I wanted to say is that this is actually the first in a series of webinars and workshops that we're going to be running, that 6G for Society is going to run jointly between projects. Our goal is to try to work towards convergence, so to help address some of these challenges, find out what support's needed when we need external support, but also help get us to all onto the same page. What's really nice is it sounds like we're all at least asking very, very similar type questions. So there is a lot of on the same page going on, which is quite fabulous to start with, even if it's in the question formats. We have an upcoming draft. This is in draft in early discussions, but with TrialsNet, one on objective and subjective measures of KVIs that we want to have coming up. But then also next year, we want to continue to have sort of small group interactions on specific value themes and indicators that bring in external and vertical experts. We want to understand things like what is societal sustainability for 6G? Can we provide some more definitions and grounded definitions on approaches to that? Maybe one on why does acceptance matter to this whole conversation, and then how do we work with trade-offs? Because I know those also came up as a few conversations. So those are some of the early on plans that we have to try to work with. And with that, we are now done. And I just want to say thank you. And I feel really bad because we did not actually get to Chiara's last question. So I might have to actually send that out to everybody as a follow-up one, because I think it's a really important one. And I see Tassos, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm sorry I could not attend from the beginning. I put a question, in fact, in the chat. I was hoping that you would pick it up.
Let me, how do I get active?
I have basically a simple question, perhaps for next time, whether you have discussed at some point, KVI washing of technology.
It came up in my group.
It came up. Okay, good. Thanks.
It did. At least it came up. It came up and was one of the top voted ones in my group, actually, as well as a fear. So yeah.
Okay. Very good. Because I think this is something that we need to be aware of as well, because many people claim doing work on KVIs, but if you dig a little bit deeper, there is basically nothing.
Or I don't know, I wouldn't say there's nothing by any means, but this link that we're making, we need to understand how to make it as strong as possible right now. Yeah. And right now, I think on many of our cases, the links aren't where we want them to be. I mean, this is what I'm hearing throughout all the groups and all the questions. And so it's a key thing that has to happen next.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Katrina. That's positively formulated.
We got to figure out how to go next. So this is the thing. This is our job, is to look forward. And figure out how to make it happen. All right. I want to thank everybody for their energy and their engagement. I was so impressed with the discussion and so pleased. And just I really hope you continue this conversation with us. We will follow up with a report from this. We will share what we've learned. If it's substantial enough, we'll see if it can be enough to be a webinar or one of the talks in one of the future webinars, so we can share this with everybody. I'm very excited to see what happened in the other groups. And we will use this also to prioritize and redraft. So this is what we're thinking right now, but based on the discussions today, I'm imagining we might actually be doing different types of webinars coming up, because I'm seeing some strong priorities and needs happening that we could work on. So we'll continue and figure out how to make activity happen in those areas. Thank you, guys.